Hi, so this recording should help you create either your film poster or your DVD cover using Photoshop. As you can see here, I've already got Photoshop slightly open. You'll have access to the files for this on your desktop. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a film poster. I know some of you are doing DVD covers, but you can obviously take this and then this will be the front cover of your DVD. And then you just need to use the same sort of skills and put that to the back of the cover. So the first thing we need to do is go new file. For the poster, unless any of your teachers have told you any different, I imagine we would work to A4. So when you go to new file, A4 and create. Now it's really important to remember that Photoshop is industry standard. So that just means that it's used across the creative industries, whether it's advertising, television, film poster, anything like that. So it's can be a really complicated program, but it does give you a load of control. So some of the techniques that we're going to look at today are quite advanced, but hopefully it'll give you the skills to create the poster that you really want to. So what we're going to make today is a science fiction poster. And to start with, because it's science fiction, I'm going to make the background black. And what I want is to create a background image. We may not see a lot of it by the time the DVD is finished or the film poster is finished, but it'll just add that layer in there. It doesn't give us a lot of sort of just empty space, i.e. the black. So what I'm going to do is if I go to File and Open, and then on your desktop, you will have a folder called Poster. And in there, you'll have, if I double click on that, you'll have, for those of you doing DVD covers, there's a template there that I'll speak to you about in class. This is what we are looking to create or part. I'm going to add some extra stuff on there, but that's what we're looking to create. And here's our assets. Most of these have just come off the internet. Obviously, as it's your coursework, it makes sense if you can generate as many images as possible. But you get the idea. So like I said, I want to make a background image first. So I want to use that and that image. So I'm just going to select them both. All I've done is hold down Command, or you can open them separately. And these will open up as extra tabs here. I want to take this image into my untitled one. So when you want to move anything, we'll use what's called the Move tool here. And we can drop that in. And then you can see we've got this bounding box. If you don't have this bounding box, you can select the option there. And we can make this bigger or smaller as we want to. So I've got that there. And then I can close that down now. And I'm going to bring this layer in as well. Like I said, we probably won't see a lot of these. And I'm overlapping by quite a lot, as you can see. Okay, and the reason for that is one of my favorite tools in Photoshop is called a layer mask. Now, if you're wondering what layer mask is, how Photoshop works is when you bring in more than one layer onto an image, when you bring in more than one image, I should say, onto your background page, they come in as layers. And we've got total control over these layers, as you can see there. So what a layer mask will do, now with my top layer selected, if I select the layer mask from here, and we got a white piece of paper, so I need black ink. If I then get my brush And again, think of yourself as a painter for this. I'm going to start with a big brush and a low opacity. This is the difference with low opacity. And I'm just going to start to take away some of this to blend the two images together. Now you can see I've still got a bit of a harsh line across there where the two images meet. If I take this opacity up to 100 and take my brush size down, I can then just get rid of that and it almost becomes one image. And what I can do then is, I'm happy with how that looks, so I'm going to merge those layers together so it just becomes one. And again, that's just one layer. Then I can place that exactly where I want to. And I'm going to add a layer mask to this, and again, very much as I just done. And this will kind of be a theme throughout, because I want to kind of keep it sort of simple but with the control. I'm just going to get rid of some of that and some of that. I'm going to take this up a little bit, take my brush size down a bit. Okay, and we've sort of merged those together. How much of those we'll see, like I said, I don't know, but it gives us something. And maybe I'm just going to place that around there like so. Okay, so we've got a background image related to, very much related to science fiction. So now I'm ready to import or open my next image. And for that, it is going to be this spacesuit. Now, obviously I can't access, or you may not be able to access a spacesuit. So again, check with your teachers, but it may be doable that you can source that from the internet. Open that up, and what you'll see is we've got an option there to remove background. If I click on that, it should get rid of all this black for me. Okay, and then with the move tool selected again, I'm going to drag that in to our image, and then I can resize as I feel. I want it quite large. Okay, maybe even a tiny bit bigger. So like I said, we're starting to lose some of that background, but having it there is quite good. Sometimes you maybe when we're talking about layer masks, this is the mask, this is the image. It takes some getting used to. You may be trying to delete something and it's not deleting, or it doesn't quite look like you want it to. It may be because you're working on the wrong part of the layer. Okay, so I just want to change the brightness and contrast of this a little bit to make it a little bit more, tie in a little bit more with the background. So I'll select the layer and then image adjustments, and from here you can change things like brightness, contrast, you can change hue, saturation, the color balance if you wanted to make it black and white. First of all, I'm going to go with brightness and contrast. I want to add some contrast to it. You can see what's kind of going on there. I'm going to take the brightness down a bit so it's a little bit darker, maybe to tie in. And again, you could then, if you wanted a particular, maybe some saturation comes out, that just makes things black and white. If you take it all the way down, and I may put a little bit more, tiny bit of blue in there. We can colorize that to make it more blue again. Possibly like that. Okay. And from there, on this layer mask, so make sure that's selected. Get your brush, and I'm going to do the same again. I like to use a lower opacity with a big brush so that we get a nice blend. You can see some of the background coming in there. And then take my opacity up a smaller brush just so that we get rid of that harsh edge. Okay. Again, you could, if you wanted to, then decide that you want to bring down some of the background so it sits a bit more like that. That's kind of up to you. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to, oops. Let's just get rid of that harsh line again. The wrong layer. Okay, so for now at least, I'm happy with what we've got. Again, I'm ready for my next image. Certainly this image would be one that I would expect you to generate. I haven't. So we've got someone playing basketball there. The reason I've picked this is his face is quite emotionless. I like the sweat coming off his brow a little bit. So again, it suits what I'm looking for as far as my astronaut. If you wanted that, again, just get a little spray bottle or something. If you're taking your own image, if you wanted it to look like someone's perspirating a little bit, it's easily done. And what I'm going to do with this is we don't need to take all this image in. We only really want the face. What I'm going to do is if I come onto this image first, and at the top and the bottom we've got something called rulers. You can see here the numbers and you can see here. If I drag in from the corner here and from the top, and what I'm doing is I'm making, for the most part, I'm trying to capture where the glass starts and where the glass kind of ends, if you see what I mean. And what I'm going to do is make an ellipse around this. Now the reason for doing the rulers is now I know where the crosshair is of the horizontal and vertical line of the mask. If I drag from this area here, you can see I've now got a nice circle that's pretty much the same size as the glass of the mask. And what I'm going to do now is I can take all this in actually if I wanted to. So if I don't need it all, so if I just do something bigger than I need and I go edit, copy and edit, paste special, paste into, I've pasted into that circle. Okay, and then I can make this smaller by dragging one of the corners until I'm happy with the size of the person in the mask. Okay, so I'm going to say that I'm generally happy with that as a size for now. I can always change it later. What I do want to do is get rid of this background. So with what we call, and what you'll see is all these options in the toolbar, or nearly all the options, have a little kind of triangle on the corner there. That means that there's more options. So if I just keep my finger on them, we've got things like the lasso, polygonal, magnetic, the brush tool, pencil tool, and so on. For this, I'm going to use something called the magic wand tool, and that selects by color basically. So make sure I'm on the right layer. So if I select this, it's going to select all the red from the background. When I press delete, it'll disappear. Okay, and then I can deselect, undo. I still had a little bit of red around that. So what I'm going to do is go to select, modify, and contract. I want to contract the selection by 1. undo. Select, modify, expand. Sorry, wrong way around. 2. And then when I delete, I should have a cleaner version. And again, what we can do is we want to get rid of the earring, and we've still got red around there. So again, with the layer brush selected, I'm going to get a small brush, and and again, you'll have more time to do this, and just to get rid of the earring as well. We can clean that up as well if we wanted to. I won't for now. And we've got some harsh edges that I would usually soften off, but from a time point of view for this recording, it's just a case of doing it this. What I do want to show you, so yes, we want to get rid of all the red bits, but also we've got some of the mask that isn't showing, and we'll come back to that in a second. So we've got our character in the mask, but it doesn't look very realistic at the moment. So what we're going to do for that is go back to our layers, select the layer of our character, and then we've got what's called blending modes. So darken, multiply, linear, darker. Okay, and what we'll start to find is once we get down to these lighten, screen and so on, we are starting to see something a bit more appropriate to what we want. So I'm going with the linear dodge. If we close the eye for a second, the layer is still there, but it allows us to see what's underneath. I'm going back to this mask layer, and some of this was too powerful almost to see our character. So with the brush tool, and I'm gonna get a larger brush, take the opacity down, but I'm just gonna darken some of this in here, and it just means our character will stand out a little bit more. We're not going to see some of that because that's where he's going to be, and when I turn it back on now, he stands out a little bit more. Again, I'm going to click onto the person, image, adjustments, let's go brightness and contrast. I'm going to take the brightness down a little bit but add some contrast, and again, it's something that you're happy with then. I really don't like this red, so I'm going to click onto there, get my brush tool. I'll do this, and what we can do as well then is clean up around. I'm going to put my opacity to 100, so make sure and we're just cleaning that up, but again, we wouldn't expect anything there because it's part of the mask. His ears need a bit of work, but again, we can just soften those edges a little bit, like so, and this is where the mask would go. His head looks a little bit squashed into the mask, but you can play with it. It should look fine when we sort of zoom out, and you start to get the idea. You can, even if you wanted to, then go back into your mask, bigger brush, and this is just about kind of, I'm just going to soften that bit up a little bit really. Okay, but you can start to see it come in there now. So I'm happy with that. I think that looks quite realistic. I'll go and open another image. This will just give it a little bit of setting, if it would work. Open. That's interesting. can't promise this will work, but we'll try. It's opened before, so I don't see why it won't open. I'll try and save this image again. So file, open. That's now on my desktop, I think. Open my downloads. Should be saving to my desktop. There it is. Open. I'll come back to that, or I'll just find another image very quickly. So again, like I said, that was just to give us a little bit of context. NASA Launchpad images. If you are searching for images off the internet, because you're allowed to use them, if you go to advanced search, search at least by large, if not larger than. Otherwise they can be really pixely. And for this one, aspect ratio, I want something quite panoramic, which is just long and wide. I think that may have been the image I've tried to use. I'll try this one instead, maybe. So opening a new tab just for us to see the image, nice and big. Save image as, and save. Okay, so then if I go file and open, there's the JPEG image. That's worked fine. I'm going to drag this, cancel, sorry. Drag this into Untitled 1. Or you can go file and open. And again, I want a nice bit of overlap. Maybe like so. And I'm going to add a layer mask, which is this. Get my brush. Large brush. Low opacity. I want to try and keep the majority of the rocket in, so I'm almost arcing over a little bit. I'm going to do the bottom as well, and then I'm going to make my brush smaller. I'm not going to change the opacity yet, and now I'll take my opacity up to 100 just so I can get rid of that harsh line there and any harsh line there. And again, if you did want to put some back in, because I can see it's just gone over, if I flip that so white is on top, I've put the top of that rocket back in there. Okay. And again, you can put as many layers or images on to your poster as you think is necessary. You don't want to overcomplicate things or have too much going on, but obviously you can just use the same techniques. And from there, what did I call my last poster? Solo something? Solo flight. I'm going to open this up as well. Just that should open up in the next one. And then to put your text on, all you do is select the T for text. You've got your options of fonts and colors and alignment. I'll center it. And mine is called Solo Flight. I can close those down. The font I'm going to use will be something like Futura or something. Or even something like that, that's fine. Again, you want it to fit in with the genre. I wouldn't say your choice of font is not always the one you like. That wouldn't work for a science fiction, for example. You could go very science fiction-y. Mine is a little bit futuristic maybe, but... And then you got more options in here, so you can extend those out. And the same with kind of up and down. Again, I don't necessarily like that font. I'm trying to think of what font I used last time. There it is. What font was that? That was this one, Montserrat. So, and I'm going to go for the thin font I quite like for this. Okay, so it's called Solo Flight. Maybe needs to be a little bit bigger. And just a little bit thinner. And then, save me typing it out, I'm just gonna copy the text. I'm using the same font, but a different, this is semi-bold. I'm gonna drag this down. And again, now I've got my text, I feel like this is too large. I'm just gonna get rid of some more of this. Oh, wrong way. Black. I'm just gonna get rid of some more of that, just to show you what I mean. Again, with the move tool selected, I'm just gonna post that up a little bit. Get my text. I should be able to just paste, because I've taken it from somewhere else. So this is my tagline, just to give it some context. And then I'm going to bring in open. Then it's just those conventions you'd associate with a film poster, really. So poster, so it'll be a certificate. If I select the magic wand and get rid of the back. Now I've selected the back rather than the 15. So all we need to do is inverse that layer, and then I can drag it across and didn't copy it, sorry. Edit, copy, edit, paste. I've got my certificate. Resize. Probably still a little bit big. And it may even be that we don't even want that layer. That may work better. Okay, you've obviously got that flexibility. So we've got that. Then I'm going to add some text. I'm going to add some characters. So Andy Phillips. I'm making these names up, by the way. Just going to drag that down. These don't need to be huge. What I will do then is if I duplicate this, so if I grab the layer from here and drag it down, I'm going to drag it 3 times. And what I've got then is I've got and then I can double click in here and Michelle Jones. Just double click in there, and this could be Stephen Wright. Again, it's down to your research and understanding of posters, then how you want to lay these out. What I've got on my other, and I can give you this, but it's not on that one. If I go back into File and Open, is it in my downloads? What I'm going to do is just add but it's not there. Again, it gets complicated when you've got a lot of different layers. That's what I wanted. So you've got this movie poster template, if you like. It's just whether it's opened. Cancel. And what I want to do is select these three here and will it do a big jump across them. Undo. Too many layers there. Nope. I want music, executive and directed, and then if I drag these across, I don't know why it's bringing in the wrong layer. I don't want that layer selected. Keeps bringing in the wrong layer. That's better. And then just to finish it off, we've got, and again in your layers you can just make this as big and as centered, as big or as small as you want. Okay, so there's a quick overview of how we can build up a film poster or the front cover of a DVD using layers, selections and layer masks. Thanks.